Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp.com, and I've been with them for a long time. BetterHelp is an online platform where we found that you can effectively communicate with your therapist. Now, you begin by filling out a questionnaire, and then you'll be matched with a therapist within a couple of days. And if that match isn't ideal for you, you can certainly make an adjustment there. Now, you're going to be encouraged to journal, and also they have the availability for group therapy on a wide array of topics, and I really like that. So as the need exists, go ahead and take the necessary steps to get the help that you need. And just know that BetterHelp has a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, so it indeed is a platform you can trust. There's a link below the video that will take you there. Hey, Team Healthy. Want to welcome you to another episode in my Narcissism Is series. This is where I'm trying to help you understand what narcissism consists of in a non-textbook kind of way. Now, as we get into our topic for today, I want to focus on a pretty cool word that we don't often use with respect to psychological matters, but it's the word edification. When you edify someone, that means you are focused on becoming an uplifting and a presence in someone else's life. You want to give benefit to them. You want to enlighten them. Actually, our English word edification comes from a Latin root word that means to build. We have the word edifice for a building, for example. Now, as you think about that narcissistic individual in your life, do you think of that person as being edifying, building up, and offering encouragement? And of course, I know most of you are just shaking your head thinking, oh no, this is not a building up process when I'm with that narcissistic person. They do the exact opposite. They don't build up, they bring down. And that's not a strong enough way to put it. Narcissists are in the deconstruction business. They want to destroy who you are. They want to bring down whatever good that you have built on the inside of themselves. And that being the case, they're going to tear you down. They're going to belittle you, etc. I want to give you a couple illustrations of how this can impact somebody. I was speaking to a lady once who had gone to a friend's house, and while she was there, the two kids got into an argument, and the husband stepped in and then calmly pulled the kids aside and said, "We need to talk," and walked them through their choices and options about how they could have managed their conflict differently. And this lady looked at her friend and said, "This never, when I say never, ever happens inside my home." And her buddy was saying, "Well, this is what we do in our home." And this woman came to my counseling office saying, "Nobody ever talked with me in a way, when I was growing up, in a way that allowed me to think, what are my options, what are my choices?" And certainly she didn't live in a home situation where that was consistent with her husband and then other kind of individuals. Edification was not the norm. Destruction was her norm. Or taking it on a stronger illustration, there was a guy that came to my counseling office, and he was talking with me about the suicide of his brother. And one of the things he said was, nobody was surprised when my brother took his life. And then he went on to describe how in his family of origin, that brother had been the scapegoat, and the father had been extremely overbearing and put so much emphasis on how this guy's brother was such a loser and no good, and lots of anger and screaming and etc. And he said, when he took his life, it's like he's now at peace. That's a really sad thing to say when a person grows up and everybody realizes you've become a nobody as far as your own assessment of yourself could be. Now, when we talk about words that describe narcissists, some of the non-textbook words that we could use would be words like bullying, or overbearing, or uncompromising, intimidating, shaming, subjugating. Those are words of people that destroy. And then when I hear comments like these that I mentioned in these two illustrations from people who have been exposed to the destructive patterns of a narcissist, I hear phrases like, "I lost myself," or "I became a shell of who I wanted to be." I never felt that I had any kind of freedom whatsoever to draw upon. I was constantly covering up, walking on eggshells. I was afraid of what might be next. And then they would inevitably imply, the message was sent to me loud and clear, it's not okay for you to be you. That's the destructive mindset that the narcissist brings. And we can say, when a narcissist of this nature gets into a dissension with you, they don't just go into a bad mood. I mean, yes, they go into a bad mood. They're intentional in their need to control and subjugate you, and they have to superimpose themselves. They have to be in a superior position, which means they will inevitably create a win-lose paradigm in pretty much any relationship they have. And of course, what's where you're going to fit inside that paradigm. And then, this is one of these crazy-making kind of things, when you call that narcissist out on their destructive ways, you know what they're going to do? They're going to accuse you of being argumentative or contrarian or unsupportive or unappreciative, or you're the hard one to get along with. And you just throw your hands up in futility. It's like, I can't win. And of course, that's correct, because the outcome is already established before you even have a chance to contribute. Win, lose, I'm the winner, you're the loser. That's the way the narcissist thinks. Now, as you examine this, and I know that so many of you have had the experience of saying, oh yeah, that person in my life is just one destructive pattern after another, just waiting to happen. What does this tell us about what's on the interior of the narcissist? And I've mentioned this to you before, but it's important for you to realize this, because just as I mentioned, they want to blame you for all of the chaos they carry on the inside. First, what this tells us is the destructive narcissist is highly status conscious. And what I mean by that is, for a long time, going way back into their developmental years, they've had one really large question in their mind, and that is, where do I fit in the pecking order? And they don't want to be on the low end, they want to be on the high end. But then we'll take it a little bit further and we'll say, what that tells us, when you see that they think this way, they already, before you showed up on the scenes, they already were running from their own feelings of inadequacy, worried about where they stand on the pecking order. Deep beneath all of this, there's this notion that says, well, people have not really treated me well, and so I've been belittled, and when it comes my turn, I'm going to be the one who does the belittling. And I'm going to demean other individuals. That's how I find my significance. As opposed to taking their negative experiences and learning from it, they take their negative experiences and build upon it. That's a different way of edification. Now, in addition, we can see that these destructive narcissists have an unnatural attitude towards anger. You've heard me say in the past that anger can have a constructive construct. It can have a constructive goal to it, in that we can address issues in a clean and coordinated kind of way. It's called assertiveness. Narcissists don't even have a clue as to what that is. Instead, they have such an attitude of entitlement. The world owes me something, that whenever you come into a disagreement with them, they are already thinking, I've got to make up for whatever losses I have, and you're not going to put any kind of loss on me. And so they can come out with a sense of fury and harshness and meanness, like, I will shut you down and I will destroy any thoughts and ideas that you have that are different. And inevitably, we can see that these people had to have learned this from somewhere, and in extremely high percentage of the cases, we can see that these people were debased in their own personal history, which means they're in constant compensation mode, and you just happen to be the player on the stage where they're trying to play out some of their inner tensions in a not very good way. They, in addition, this tells us that narcissists have a serious lack of coping skills. It's what I refer to as emotional competence. I mean, go back to that illustration where this woman was watching her friend's husband talk to the kids in a very healthy and teachable kind of way. Narcissists did not have the benefit of that, nor do they even think of that as being a viable possibility. They just can't do that. Clearly, they have no sense of empathy. They have not felt understood in their life. Therefore, they don't know how to show it towards you. They just simply superimpose. When it's time for us to have a meeting of the minds, their notion is, well, let me tell you how it has to be. And then we can say that they automatically interpret any difference between themselves as you as rejection, as opposed to saying, oh, it's different. Now, all of this can have a profound impact on you. When the narcissist seeks to destroy you and bring you down, there's no building up whatsoever, your defenses become heightened greatly. You become very guarded. You have increased feelings of futility. You've heard the term complex trauma. That's when you can have all of these negative episodes coming at you over and over and over and over. That's the complex part, to the point where it creates a post-traumatic kind of stress in you, a complex post-traumatic stress. Then in addition, it can make you prone toward reactive anger. They throw their anger at you and you play right back at them, which of course just feeds right into their hand. It's like, look at you. And it can cause you to feel chronically unheard and misunderstood. And you become a nobody as far as as being in the narcissist's presence. And just mere survival becomes your preoccupation. And as a result, your own personal growth is stunted. So when you see this in front of you, drop the notion that you can make that narcissistic person be anything other than what he or she is. And I know that's a negative thought, but it's just reality, and we have to face that reality. Be open with advisors. Narcissists want to keep you from having friends and confidants. Make sure that you don't go into isolation. And then as you move away from their destructive patterns, make sure that your assertiveness is behavioral more than verbal. In other words, rather than trying to talk it out yet again in an unsuccessful way, live out your differences, live out your uniqueness, live out your distinctions. I have this mantra on my Surviving Narcissism channel here. Dr. C, DRC, stands for dignity, respect, and civility. And it's something that I believe in so strongly. The narcissist has no clue what that is. That would mean that they are in the construction rather than the destruction kind of business. They would be edifying as opposed to pulling you down. Stand in your own dignity and stand in your self-respect and be a civil individual. That's the way you come against the destructive powers of the narcissist. Now, I hope that this gives you some good awareness and insight about what you might be dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. I consider it a privilege when you allow me to be on your path with you. Now, you know that I'm a huge proponent of psychotherapy. I'm sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com. It's an online therapy resource. You would just go through their link. We have it below the video here, and answer a few questions. You get to select a therapist, and I would hope that you would find somebody that you can work this thing through with, because this can create so many tensions. There's so much rebuilding, re-edification that you need to engage in. Get the help that you would need. We have the link below, and I hope that it would be very beneficial for you to do so. Now, in addition, I would invite you to go to my website. I have lots of resources on there. You'll notice that I have online courses, and this is something you can take at your own pace. Each course has at least 25 teaching videos with handouts and guided questions. We have them on anger games, about how to manage anger properly. This is me, about establishing your boundaries. Both of those would be especially pertinent in this kind of situation we're describing today, along with This Is Me, finding yourself despite those controllers, Ready, Set, Connect, about what healthy connections look like. I also have a tab on there that refers to my webinars, and those are 90-minute PowerPoint presentations. I have hundreds of articles, my books, so we have lots of resources there for you. It wouldn't be nice if you could be in the presence of somebody that's an edifier, but narcissists, they go in the opposite direction. They bring you down, they destroy, they try to take away your foundation. When you see that, it's like, you know what, that person is not going to be the construction supervisor in my life. I'm not going to let that happen. I want you to be somebody that builds your own self up so that you can pass that along to fellow sojourners and be a person of light. And I hope in the end, you'll also be a person of peace.